Emily Carter lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. The clock beside her glowed 12:13 a.m. The house was supposed to be quiet, calm, like it always was at this hour, but tonight something felt different. The usual peace had been replaced by laughter, shouts, and a low thump that made her stomach twist with irritation. She turned over, pulled the blanket tighter around her, and tried to ignore it, telling herself it would stop soon. Yet, with each passing minute, the sounds grew louder. It wasn't just Ryan. His friend Jake seemed to be over, and together they made the house feel like it belonged to them instead of her. Emily had married Daniel Carter 2 years ago. Daniel was kind, patient, and gentle, and he loved his son Ryan fiercely. Emily cared for Daniel deeply, but she had struggled to find her place in this blended family. Ryan was polite enough, but there was always a quiet distance between them, a wall Emily didn't know how to climb. Sometimes she felt she intruded on their bond rather than contributed to it. She tried to be understanding, tried to let Ryan and his friends have their space, but tonight it felt different. The noise, the laughter, the thuds, it wasn't just loud, it was almost daring, as if they wanted to prove something to see how she would react. She sat up, listening intently. The sound of a door opening, a quick burst of laughter, and then the thump of footsteps coming down the hallway. Emily felt her irritation rise. Seriously? She muttered to herself, swinging her legs off the bed. She pulled on her robe and padded softly down the hall, careful not to make noise, but her curiosity pulled her forward. When she reached the corner, she saw light spilling from Ryan's room. The laughter and music stopped abruptly, as if someone had flicked a switch. There was silence for a moment, and Emily felt a strange tug in her chest, a mix of frustration, concern, and something she couldn't quite name. She knocked gently on the door. "Ryan, are you guys okay? It's really late." Her voice sounded softer than she expected, almost hesitant. There was a pause, then Ryan's voice slightly tense. "Yeah." Emily opened the door a crack. The room was messy, but not unusually. So clothes were strewn on the floor, a backpack leaned against the wall, and the faint smell of snacks lingered in the air. Ryan sat on his bed, looking a little guilty, while Jake leaned casually against the desk, trying to appear relaxed but clearly aware of her presence. "Hey," Emily said, her voice gentle. "It's really late. I can't sleep." She tried not to let her irritation show, but she didn't want to pretend everything was fine. Ryan shifted uneasily, avoiding her gaze. "Oh, sorry, we didn't realize it was that loud," he said. Jake nodded quickly. "I'll keep it down, ma'am." Emily offered a small smile, grateful for their polite response, though she didn't step fully into the room. She turned to leave, but stopped. There was something about seeing them together, laughing, even quietly, that stirred an emotion inside her, a warmth she hadn't expected to feel tonight. She stepped back into the hallway, leaning against the wall, listening. The laughter resumed softly, more subdued now, but it had a different tone. It wasn't chaotic or brash. It was alive and human. She realized then that the feeling of frustration was mingled with something else entirely. It was a strange comfort. The sound of young voices, playful yet sincere, reminding her that life didn't always have to feel heavy and silent. She thought about her own day, how she had felt invisible at times, how marriage and family life could sometimes leave her feeling unseen despite her love and effort. Emily went back to her room, but found sleep impossible. Her mind replayed the moments she had just witnessed, the way Ryan had seemed tense, almost anxious, when she spoke to him. The way Jake had subtly reassured him. It wasn't just noise keeping her awake, was the awareness that she was on the outside of something important, something she wanted to be a part of. She realized she cared deeply, not only for Daniel, but for the family as a whole. And yet, she often felt like an observer rather than a participant. Tonight, the sound of Ryan and Jake laughing, teasing each other, had pulled her in, made her feel alive in a way she hadn't in a long time. The night dragged on. Clock moved past 1:30 a.m., then 2 o'clock, and Emily remained awake, watching the hallway outside her door. She could hear snippets of conversation, now quiet words exchanged, laughter stifled, and occasional sighs. Each sound made her heart tighten. Ryan's voice sometimes carried a note of insecurity, a feeling Emily understood all too well. She remembered her own teenage years, the confusion, the longing for connection, and how a single kind word could make an entire night better. She felt a surge of empathy for him, and for Jake too, who seemed patient, supportive, and unwavering in his friendship. Emily's thoughts wandered further. She reflected on her own role in the family. She hadn't had children of her own, and Ryan, though polite, had always treated her with cautious distance. She wondered if he felt pressured to accept her, to love her, and whether she had done enough to make him feel safe and welcome. Watching them tonight, the energy between the two boys, the way they trusted each other, argued, laughed, and supported each other, made her realize that building such bonds took time, patience, and understanding. And perhaps she had been too hesitant, too afraid to step fully into that world. To risk rejection, the night seemed endless, yet something was shifting. Emily realized that the sleeplessness, the noise, and even her initial irritation had a purpose. It forced her to be present, to listen, to observe, to understand. She didn't just hear the sounds of the boys. She felt the emotions behind them, the quiet fears, the joy, and the vulnerability. And for the first time, she felt that maybe she could bridge the gap that had always existed between her and Ryan. Maybe tonight, in this unexpected way, a connection could begin. Hours passed, and the house slowly grew quieter. The laughter faded, replaced by the soft hum of conversation and occasional giggles. Emily lay back on her bed, her mind buzzing, heart fluttering in a way she hadn't experienced for a long time. She thought about what it would mean to try again, to reach out to Ryan, to be part of his life without forcing it, to simply exist alongside him and offer warmth and care. She felt a mixture of anticipation and anxiety, knowing that building this bond wouldn't be easy, but convinced it was worth trying. Then she heard a faint knock on her door. Startled, she sat up, unsure whether to respond. The knock was hesitant, almost timid. Emily realized it was Ryan. She hesitated for a moment, then called softly, "Come in." The door opened slowly, and there he was, looking awkward, nervous, unsure of how to begin. "Hey," he said quietly. Emily replied with a gentle hey, and for a moment silence hung between them. Then Ryan shifted, taking a step further. "Inside, I just wanted to say sorry about earlier, the noise." Emily smiled faintly, acknowledging his gesture. They stood there in the dim light, unsure how to bridge the silence. Finally, Emily said softly, "It's okay." The air felt charged with a new emotion, something tender, careful, yet meaningful. Ryan's eyes lingered on hers, a flicker of relief crossing his face. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked, almost shyly. Emily shook her head, smiling faintly. "Yeah, me neither," she admitted. They both laughed quietly, awkwardly, yet genuinely. In that moment, the tension of months, perhaps years, seemed to ease. The night that had started, with irritation and sleepless frustration, had transformed into something entirely different. Emily realized that these moments, these interactions, even in the middle of the night, could serve as the first steps toward connection, trust, and understanding. She wasn't just a guest in this family's home. She was part of their lives, even if the path was slow and winding. And as she watched Ryan retreat back to his room, she felt hope stir within her. Maybe tonight, the sleeplessness, the noise, and the laughter had all been necessary to open doors, hearts, and new beginnings. Emily finally lay back, her mind racing, her heart lighter than before. The house was quiet again, but it no longer felt empty. She felt closer, connected, and ready to try again. Tonight she had learned that family wasn't just about living under the same roof, it was about understanding, caring, and taking risks, even small ones, to reach each other. And in that restless, sleepless night, Emily Carter discovered the first spark of a bond that could grow stronger with every word, every laugh, and every quiet, shared moment. The house was quiet now, but Emily Carter couldn't sleep. The clock read to 17 a.m., and she lay on her back staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the night. Outside, the street was calm, the occasional distant car the only sound. Inside, however, something had shifted. Earlier, Ryan and Jake had been loud, careless, full of energy, but now their voices were softer, more careful. Emily didn't know why, but she felt drawn to listen, to understand what was happening beyond. The walls of her room, she slipped quietly from the bed and moved to the window, pulling back the curtain. The soft glow of the streetlights made the room feel gentle, almost dreamlike. She could still hear muted conversation from the hallway. Ryan's voice sounded small, hesitant. Jake's voice was calm, steady, supportive, the kind of voice that made you feel safe. Emily felt a tug in her chest, a mixture of concern and empathy. She didn't know why she was listening so closely, but she couldn't look away. "I just don't think she likes me," Ryan said quietly, almost a whisper. The words struck Emily unexpectedly. She had thought their relationship was just distant, polite, a simple matter of living together under one roof. But hearing Ryan's confession, the vulnerability in his voice, she realized he had his own fears, his own worries, and they weren't about her being a step-parent. They were about connection, acceptance, understanding. Jake's response came softly. "Dude, that's not true. She tries. You just shut her out." Emily's heart ached at his words. He was right. She had tried in her own way, but fear had held her back. Fear of rejection, of being unwanted, of disturbing a bond that already existed between Daniel and his son. She felt a pang of guilt for thinking it was all just noise, all just frustration. These boys, despite their age, had feelings, worries. And the night had revealed them in a way she hadn't expected. Ryan's sigh came through, heavy and long. "She's not my mom," he admitted. Emily felt her chest tighten. She knew that already. She didn't want to replace anyone. She only wanted to belong, to be part of something bigger, to be trusted, to be heard. And now she realized Ryan was thinking the same way. He didn't want her to replace anyone either. He just didn't know how to connect with her. "I know," Jake replied, "but she's still there. That counts for something." Emily leaned against her doorframe, realizing she had been holding her breath. She felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief that someone understood, sadness that Ryan didn't yet know how to feel it himself. She thought about how often she had tried to reach out, only to retreat when the walls seemed too high, when the silence felt unbroken. And now, in this quiet night, she understood that reaching out was always possible. That connection could begin in small, imperfect ways. Emily returned to her bed but didn't lie down. Instead, she sat on the edge, letting the soft glow of the streetlight warm her. She thought about Daniel and how much he loved Ryan, and how she had often felt invisible in their bond. She realized that the tension she had felt for months was not about her failure, but about understanding, trust, and patience. This night, these quiet voices in the hallway had shown her a glimpse of what needed to happen. Listening, waiting, being present, these were the first steps toward connection. Time passed slowly, but it felt different now. The energy of the earlier night, the loud laughter, the thuds of footsteps, the careless noise had faded into something more intimate, more real. Emily could hear Ryan's hesitations, the subtle pauses in his speech, the vulnerability that young people often hide behind jokes and energy. She recognized that same hesitancy in herself, the fear of opening up, of being rejected, of not fitting in. And in that recognition, she felt a sudden closeness to them, a bridge forming over the gap that had always existed. Then came the knock on her door, soft, tentative, almost afraid of being wrong. Emily froze, heart beating fast, wondering who it could be. Her first thought was Ryan. She swallowed and called softly, "Come in." The door opened slowly, and there he was, standing in the dim light, looking unsure, almost afraid of what he was about to say. Emily's chest tightened, a mix of curiosity and anticipation. "Hey," he said quietly, his voice breaking the silence. Emily replied softly, "Hey." Neither of them knew what to say next, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause. Ryan shifted awkwardly, glancing at the floor. I just wanted to say sorry. About earlier, the noise." Emily felt warmth spread across her chest. His apology was simple, honest, human. She smiled faintly, wanting him to know that she understood that it wasn't a matter of anger or irritation, but of learning, of connection, of realizing that sometimes relationships needed effort and patience. "It's okay," she said softly. The words felt heavier than they seemed, carrying empathy, forgiveness, and encouragement. There was silence. Ryan hesitated, unsure how to continue. Emily felt her own heart beat faster, the quiet tension of the night filling the room. Then Ryan took a small step further inside, his voice barely above a whisper. "Couldn't sleep either?" Emily shook her head, her smile gentle. "Yeah, me neither," she admitted. They laughed quietly, awkwardly, uncertainly, but the laughter was real, genuine, a bridge being built between them. It was the first honest moment they had shared, the first step toward breaking down months of silence, hesitation, and distance. Emily studied him in the dim light. He looked so much younger, so uncertain, yet brave in a quiet way. He had taken a risk coming to her room, standing there, apologizing and admitting his own sleeplessness. She felt a wave of emotion she couldn't quite name: pride, affection, tenderness, a desire to guide, to nurture, to be part of his life without forcing it. Ryan's presence filled the room, not with chaos or frustration, but with possibility. The house that had felt heavy and silent just hours before now felt alive with connection. "Thanks," Ryan said suddenly, breaking the silence again. Emily blinked, surprised, listening. "And understanding," he added, his voice quiet, vulnerable. Emily nodded, feeling a lump in her throat. "You're welcome," she said softly. "I wanted to understand." It was simple, but it was enough. Enough to start something new, something honest, something that might grow into a bond that could never be broken by time or distance. The tension in the room eased. Ryan leaned lightly against the doorframe, his posture relaxed for the first time that night. Emily felt her shoulders loosen, her heart lighter. They didn't need to talk about everything all at once. The act of showing up, of being present, of opening a door, literal and figurative, was enough for now. She realized that sometimes the most meaningful connections began in the quietest, most unexpected moments. And tonight, that quiet had brought them together. Hours passed. Emily and Ryan continued to exchange soft words, small gestures, tentative jokes, and quiet laughter. Each moment reinforced the fragile bridge they were building. Emily thought about the months that had passed since she married Daniel, the attempts she had made to connect with Ryan, and the small missteps that had kept them distant. She understood now that connection wasn't about grand gestures or forced conversations. It was about patience, presence, and allowing each person to feel safe in their vulnerability. The night stretched on, but Emily didn't mind. She felt alive, engaged, and emotionally awake in a way she hadn't for a long time. The earlier frustration, irritation, and sleeplessness had transformed into something far more profound. The recognition that family, trust, and understanding required effort, honesty, and heart. Ryan's hesitations mirrored her own. His small steps mirrored the ones she had been too afraid to take. And in this shared space, this quiet, sleepless night, they were taking those steps together by 4 a.m. The house had grown quieter still, though not entirely silent. Emily and Ryan had returned to their rooms, but the tension and energy of the night lingered. Emily lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events. The words, the laughter, the moments of hesitation and honesty. She realized she had learned something profound. Love, connection, and family weren't always about immediate bonds or effortless harmony. They were about showing up, listening, forgiving, and allowing the other person's space to grow. Emily felt hope stirring. In her chest, she had spent months feeling invisible, unsure, disconnected. But tonight, she had witnessed something real. She had seen Ryan's vulnerability, his need for understanding, and she had met it with patience and empathy. The small acts, the quiet conversation, the laughter. The shared acknowledgement of insomnia had become the foundation for something stronger, more lasting. She understood now that family wasn't just about blood or marriage, it was about the moments they chose to invest in each other, even when it was uncomfortable or inconvenient. As dawn approached, Emily felt her eyes grow heavy, though her heart remained awake. The world outside her window glowed softly with the first hints of sunlight, and she realized that the night had given her something rare: perspective, understanding, and the quiet certainty that she wasn't alone in her desire to connect. Ryan. And she had begun something tentative but real, and for the first time. She believed that the future held the possibility of trust, laughter, and closeness.